I wish I could share the view out of my hotel window with you right now. I am on the 35th floor in a corner room, so I have windows on two sides, and my view of Manhattan right now is beautiful. The sun is setting. I tried to position the camera so the people on YouTube could see the view, and I really couldn't find the right angle. So you'll just have to believe me. I had a whole day off today in New York City. I went to the Museum of Modern Art for the very first time. I had a lovely time. And now I'm sitting here with you to record this special on the road edition of Call Kevin.
It's the Call Kevin podcast. It's the podcast of your dreams. It's the Call Kevin podcast. On asking things. Podcast Kevin with Call Kevin.
How are you guys doing? Did you have a good week? I am doing pretty well. I've been on the road for a few days. I still have some shows this weekend. By the time you're hearing this, the last show of this month will be at Magooby's in Baltimore on Wednesday. April 10th, I'll be at the Pittsburgh Improv. April 24th, Cap City in Austin, Texas. April 26th, Tulsa, Oklahoma. The 27th, Oklahoma City. And May 4th, I'll be at the Raleigh Improv. And that's only a small little sliver of all of the shows I have coming up in 2025. Those are just the most immediate ones. If you're in any of those places, you should come see me. You'll laugh, and you need to laugh. You'll have a good time. And yeah, go check it out. The details are on my website, kevinjamesthornton.com. And also, that is where you record a message to be used on a future episode of Call Kevin. You just press the record button and start talking. It's low pressure. Nobody's listening. No one's going to answer the phone. It's just a little recording on your computer. And you can tell me a story. You can ask a question. Whatever you want to say. You can make a weird noise. You can tell me a secret. You can tell me your darkest secrets. And speaking of dark secret, I'm not wearing pants right now. I just had a moment when I looked at the monitor. Can you see that I'm not wearing pants? I think you can a little bit. All right. I need to be careful and not move a certain way. This will become an entirely different show. Let's dive right into our messages for the week.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
I have a question for you regarding my friend. I need some advice. She is married. Is this
Mistake number one.
to a man
Mistake number two.
and has 3 beautiful kids.
Mistakes 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I'm
is
sorry.
in her mid-40s and is one of my favorite humans in the whole world. And she is not happily married. There's no abuse or any sort of badness going on. I think she's just sort of fallen out of love.
Yeah.
But she has fallen in love with a woman that she works with and who is very young, is not yet out. But they're very much in love, and my friend now wants to go forward with a divorce and leave her husband. I guess my question to you is, what advice do you give my friend in this situation?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? And that's a common story. Also, I think it might be a Sex and the City episode or the most recent reboot. Actually, so, that whole thing of sort of falling out of love and a relationship just sort of fizzling and fading, that is a common story. It happens to a lot of people. And I don't know what the right thing to do is. I went through this myself a couple years ago, some of you know. And, interestingly enough, we were watching that Sex and the City. What was that show called? And Just Like That. And in that show, Miranda and Steve have been married a long time. And there was this episode where they were sitting on the couch and they were eating ice cream just like they do every single night, watching a show on television before they go to bed. And then they get in bed and fall asleep. And it's just like their, old married couple routine. And Miranda's getting really unsatisfied. They're not in love anymore. And I think they have this conversation about the spice and the spark being gone. And Steve says something to the effect of, I thought that this was enough. It's sort of, and I think for some people it is, the security and the familiarity of being with someone for a long time, even if it has just sort of faded into a platonic friendship. I think that happens to a lot of people. It happened to me. And for some people, I think that is enough. And there was me and my ex were on the couch watching this episode, and I think he even said something like, well, that's us, isn't it? Or, something like that. And we just kind of laughed. And I think there was a moment in time where I thought that was enough. I think he thought it was enough. And God, it's so layered and complex. More than one thing is true at the same time. We had so much admiration and care for each other, and we treated each other with a lot of kindness. And there were so many things that we had that were totally valuable. When we separated, I think I used the words a couple times that we drug it out at the end. We were probably together 5 or 6 years after the spark had totally faded. We were literally just like two people who are like life together people. And I think I used the phrase, we drug it out too long. But I don't feel that way anymore when I think about those years we spent toward the end. Now I think that it was valuable. That time we spent together, we just sort of laid down and spent 5 quiet years together before we decided to separate. And that was because that's how important it was. And I would do it again. We didn't drag it out. I needed a long time to say goodbye. And this got really deep instantly, didn't it? Right on the first call. I can't answer that. It's different for everyone. The heart wants what the heart wants. Sounds like she's already made up her mind. And there's maybe some elements on paper that sounds like that's not going to work, I think, for most people. It's like a younger person who's not out of the closet. I don't know. That sounds like a recipe for bad news. But the heart wants what the heart wants. And if you're in a place where you felt unsatisfied for a long time, who knows what you might do. Got to learn your own lessons, I guess. Live your own life. Forge your own path. Blaze your own trail. Launch yourself into a future of your own design.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
My name is Rebecca, and I live in San Diego, California. I'm 41, and I too grew up in a different type of fundamentalist household, but observant Jewish household where I had to observe the Sabbath without any cars, electricity, burning fire, cooking, just anything that involved fun every Friday night through Saturday night. And when I was 18, I got out as fast as I could, went to college. But I've had a hard time in my life, I think, just not having grown up with good parents, good family, and trying to figure out things on my own a lot. I'm single. I have never really had a good romantic relationship that was stable. And I'm at this point in my life where I went back to school. I had dropped out of my first master's program in my late 20s when I was near completing it. Didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And then I just got my master's in social work, and I've been a therapist now for the past 6 months. And the work can be rewarding, but I'm burned out and it's not a good workplace. And I'm really lonely. I don't have much in the way of friends. Those who I do have are limited with their emotional availability, and I only have a couple people who I see in person here where I live, and it's not very often. And most days after work, I'm by myself at night. And yeah, I feel a strong detachment and disconnection and alienation from the world, and it's increasingly scary. Anyway, recently I booked a trip to Nicaragua with one of my the yoga instructor that whose class I go to regularly is leading this yoga and surf retreat, and I've never really traveled anywhere. I actually was supposed to go on the Birthright Israel trip. I don't know if you've heard of that, but where Jews go to, well, essentially be proselytized in Israel, and it's supposed to be like a Jewish, I don't know what it is, awakening experience or something. I was supposed to go like 3 times, and I bailed out because of, well, the religious aspect and the safety piece with Israel. I didn't feel safe. But anyway, so now I'm going to Nicaragua in a month, and I'm terrified. I'm a fairly anxious person. It's a surf and yoga trip, like I said, and I do surf, but um, I'm kind of afraid of a lot of things, and I'm afraid of flying. I'm afraid of being around people in this environment where I don't know how to connect to people anymore, and I feel isolated and sad. And it's hard to meet people when you're in that headspace. And I know I could just be like, oh, I'll just go and be open and have a good time, but it feels pretty terrifying, and I don't know how to be okay with it. And I know the only thing I can do is just to do it. But I'm wondering if you've ever traveled anywhere like exotic, like I have to take like malaria prevention pills, and there's going to be mosquito nets, and it's high sun, and I'm really white, and I realize like I'm like, oh gosh, how am I even going to surf without getting burned? And I have these, I'm trying to get the sun protection, the mosquito protection, all these things, but there's a lot of like what feels like barriers, and I'm wondering, how do you keep an open mind and try to deal with the anxiety, like for a new experience that feels terrifying? Um, Maybe your other viewers will have some ideas about this, but yeah, I've come up with all these different scenarios, try to come up with a packing list, and now I can only prepare for so much. But I guess what it boils down to is I'm afraid of the flying piece, um and I'm afraid of all the things that could happen to me in this tropical environment in a remote area and all these things. And I know I can only prevent so much, and I just have to go with it at a certain point. But yeah, I appreciate any of your input. Also, I used to watch you on Cupcake Television, and then coincidentally came across your other content. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, wow. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Have you ever tried marijuana? Now, you don't have to smoke it. Maybe you're like, I don't want to smoke things. We live in the future. There's so many ways you can ingest marijuana, and it's really wonderful. I have a little marijuana gummy almost every single night of my life. And now some people might say, oh, Kevin, you might have an addiction to marijuana. And to that I say, I don't care. It feels really nice. And I will have a marijuana gummy most nights of the rest of my time on planet Earth. No, I'm sort of joking, but not really. Hey, you know what? You should take a moment and allow yourself, not allow yourself. First of all, I need to make another disclaimer that I'm a comedian. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who got famous on TikTok, and now I bought this microphone and I say things into the ethos. You're doing a brave act. Even though you are scared to fly and maybe do things out of your comfort zone, you're doing it, aren't you? You're brave. You should feel good about being brave. So start there. And then go have this experience and remind yourself how brave you are. Just keep doing that. I have been to some exotic places. I worked on a cruise ship for a while, and we went down the Amazon River. And I had to get a vaccine for yellow fever. And I remember when I went to get it, they shot it in my arm, and like 30 seconds later, I was like, I don't feel good. And I went home and slept for 2 days. Yellow fever. That thing knocked me out. Yeah, I went down the Amazon River for like a month, There were big, weird bugs everywhere. There were monkeys. It was really something. And it was life-changing. And going to Nicaragua is going to change your life too. So get into it.
Hey, Kevin.
Hi.
This is one of your biggest fans. I just wanted to call and let you know that I was listening to your most recent episode of your podcast where you were asking about what you should do about your book as far as, like how much I almost want to say that you're worried about the censorship of your lifestyle. And I just want to let you know that, first of all, I think you shouldn't be worried about, like what the general public is going to think of you because you're gay or whatever your orientation may be. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? I want you to honestly go out and write this book just as you want it to be. This is your book. And, the people that's going to read your book are the people who are interested in you, interested in learning more about you and whatnot. And I would not worry about what these naysayers have to say about you. Like, don't worry about them. And write the book in a way that suits you, what satisfies you and what you think is good. And don't be afraid. Don't hold back. Make this as exclusive, as vulgar or, raunchy, controversial, anything like that. Make it the way that you want it. This is your book. That's what your fans want to read. So I hope that gives you some encouragement. Don't worry about what these other people are thinking about you because there's so many out there that love you and want to hear more about your story. And we don't want to hear, or we don't want you to be.
Oh, it got cut off. Oh, so before I respond to that makes me think of something. A lot of the messages
Please
she's back.
Do not feel that way.
Okay. So two things. This is more of like a technical thing. That happens occasionally where like I can see the recording is like 4 or 5 minutes long, but then it just stops at some point. I think you can review your question. And if you have the time and the patience to just like give it a quick listen to make sure it didn't cut off, then please do that. And the second thing is, and I don't want to say anything that makes people not want to call in. But let me say this. The max amount of the recording is 5 minutes, and that's a long time. I would say if you're going to use the whole 5 minutes, this is not about this caller, this is just a general note. Sometimes, so here, like in the real world, I don't have a staff of people helping me make this show. It's just me. And in the real world, I think there'd be a producer who like screens the calls and then edits them into like a tight little 60-second thing that just gets to the question and whatever information we need. And I don't have that. And I also just don't have the time to edit 15 messages every week. I don't have, so this is what it is. I just take the recording as it is right off of the recording service. So I would say, and I don't want to say anything to discourage or hinder anyone, but if you are going to take the whole 5 minutes, I would encourage you to maybe just think about what you're going to say first and maybe jot down your beginning, middle, and end and try and get to the point. Because sometime, once in a while, there's a message and it's like, oh, this question is actually super interesting. But it's sort of buried in 5 minutes of rambling, and it's like hard. It's hard to listen to, you guys. Not everyone, but it happens a lot. It's like, man, I wish I could use this. I want to use this question, but I don't have time to edit it. And they rambled for 5 minutes before they got to the good part. So I don't want to discourage you. I know, or make you self-conscious. But just maybe take a deep breath and see if you can get to it a little more succinctly. Okay. You know what? This is a good time for a dance break.
Dance break in your car, in
shimmy. Yes. Can't move too much because I'm not wearing pants. Thank you, the person who left that message about me not censoring myself in the writing of my book. Last week, I rambled for quite a while last week, but it's my show and I can ramble if I want. And you can too. I just want us to, let's make the show as good as it can be together. Last week I was trying to work out this thought where I'm writing my book and there's I was jokingly saying I was a pervy kid. That's funny, I think. I was a pervy kid. I think lots of kids are pervy kids. We're just in an era where a lot of vilification of gay people has happened. And again, it's like, well, I can't pay attention to those people. Sure. Yes, I agree. I'm writing my book, no holds barred. But I do have an awareness of my responsibility in the world. I've been a gay diplomat my whole life. And especially back in the 90s.
It was the 90s.
I know that I walked slowly, holding hands with people until they came around on their homophobia. I have felt like a diplomat my whole life. People need to see a real human. They need to hear a real story, a real human story. I was thinking about this today. People, we don't change very easily. And when we have rotten ideas, we also don't change them very easily. We definitely don't change them when we feel like we're being forced to change, or when we're just straight up called out on our homophobia or our bigotry. A lot of people double down on their awfulness. The thing that really changes humans is art. Movies and stories, hearing people's stories, seeing a movie or reading a book about someone's life that you don't understand. That's the thing that moves people and changes people. I often say, as cheesy as it might have been in the 90s.
It was the 90s.
Will and Grace. That show changed so many people. That show changed suburban moms' lives or minds about gay people. If we're just left to only imagine and wonder what kind of awful things are those people doing. Trans people are getting it really bad right now. So much sort of myths and made up things about people that we don't know. So we vilify them. Anyway, all that to say, I'm writing my book. I'm not censoring myself. And I'm a pervert. Back in the day, I love John Waters and Divine. There was an era of gay silliness and expression and jokes that was almost kind of raunchy and in your face. Because we were in a world where it's things needed to change, things needed to shift in our culture, and they just weren't. So artists like John Waters and Divine sort of do this in your face, oh, you thought that was offensive? Watch this. And it's just boundary pushing, and I love that stuff. It's a kind of thing that couldn't really quite exist today because we're in a way different place culturally. And it's tricky. Anyway, enough about that. This would be a good part of the show, I think. I'm doing this thing where right in the middle of the show, I'm putting a little commercial break. And I've had a couple sponsors already, but I don't have one right now. So I'm doing this thing where I'm going to shout out your businesses or charity or whatever it is you've got going on. We're going to call this a little community bulletin board. And this is an experiment. So I asked people on Substack to write me a little script about your business or whatever it is. A lot of you did it. So each week I'm going to pick a couple of these and shout it out. So it's like a commercial break, but it's listener submitted commercials. I do not know any of these businesses. This is not an endorsement. These are just you guys sending in your thing. So here we go. Imagine aging out of foster care at 18 with no safety net, no family to call, and no idea where you'll sleep next. Scary, right? That's the reality for too many young people in our country. But here's where you come in. At Casa Valentina, we provide housing, life skills, and a community that feels like family, so these young adults can build their futures with confidence. And guess what? You can be part of the success story. A small donation can mean safe housing, a college degree, or a first job interview. So let's show up for these youth. Donate today at casavalentina.org and help us build bright futures together. I think I cut this one off. It's Whisker, what does that say? Whisker-park.com, a boutique for all things feline. They have amazing gifts for you or the cat fancier in your life, like cat-themed puzzles, mugs, totes, apparel, books, and much more. They even have the essentials for your cat so you can show your affection with a new toy or treat. And if you're in Central Florida, come check out the Feline Exclusive Salon, boarding and boutique in person in Orlando. That's whisker-park.com. We've got one more here. This is on Instagram. It's Martha Johnston. Johnston Art. Martha, Johnston. Martha Johnston Art. They do paintings of your pets, pet portraits. So maybe if you're a listener and you want a portrait commissioned of your little creature, check out Martha Johnston Art on Instagram and Substack. All right. That's our total experiment for community notes, prayer requests, community bulletin board. We'll try that again. What'd you guys think? If you want to shout out your business or charity, write me a little paragraph, send it to me on Substack, or don't DM on Instagram. I get a whole bunch of messages and it's hard to find them. You can also email it to me at booking@kevinjamesthornton.com.
Hi, Kevin. It's Skip from North Carolina. Pronouns she, her. I did the intro for your first episode of the revamped podcast.
Oh, yeah. That was cute.
I just wanted to send you a note to say that your Secret Sunday message and Call Kevin are just one of the highlights of my week. I actually had to have surgery yesterday, and I've been lying here in pain because, surgery just kind of sucks. But been lying here and listening to Call Kevin. And, it's such a brilliant idea, and you execute it so wonderfully.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, it really is this safe space where we can laugh and talk about deep things and share stories, and it's just really wonderful. And you are a wonderful human being. So I hope your tour is going well. I'm still hoping to make it out to your show at the Raleigh Improv next month. I don't know if I'll be cleared to do that, but I also know you're coming back to, I want to say Greenville or Greensboro. God, I get the two confused, and I've lived down here for a few years now. But in September, so if I don't catch you in April, I will see you in September. Because you're just so talented and you bring joy to the world. And you need to know that we all know this is kind of a scary time and an uncertain time. And a lot of the content you put out, you really don't get paid for. You're just doing it to share. And that's so joyful and so necessary. So thank you for being you. It means so much to us out here.
Oh, well, you're welcome. You might not know. I don't know if this is of interest or not. But I don't make money on any of my content. That's a little different, I guess, for I don't really consider myself a creator, and I don't want to be a creator. What do I want to be when I grow up? All of the stuff I make, the social media content, I don't make money on any of it. I don't monetize any of that stuff, and I don't really do sponsorships. I've done a couple of things, but not how most creators make their living. My living right now, almost 100% comes from my live show, the ticket sales from my show. That is my income. Now, there's other things in the mix sometimes. I got an advance for the book that I wrote or that I'm writing. So that was a different piece of the pie that's not normally there. But for the most part, it's my shows. That's how I make money. Thanks for saying that. You guys, I'm glad you're enjoying the show. I also am loving making this show. I'm excited about it, and I feel it working in the universe. You guys are listening. You guys are calling in. And I'm really excited to make it each week. And I love knowing that you guys are anticipating it each week. So it's working. I'm into it.
Hey, Kevin, I had a question for you. I was having a discussion with my friend. We were walking through a park that had gotten kind of muddy in some places, and we got on the discussion of which shoe would be best to walk through a muddy section in. We decided our three options for this debate were going to be Crocs, flip-flops, or barefoot. And he said that he would go Crocs if he had to walk through the muddy thing because your foot is like fully encased aside from the holes, and you could just wash it out with a hose later and it would be fine and ready to go. I said barefoot because personally I cannot stand the feeling of like the shoe being full of mud or something like that. Like, even if you could wash it out with the hose, you're still gonna have to walk to the hose, and that's just a nightmare. I would rather just be like all the way in the mud barefoot or not be in the mud at all, which in this case wasn't an option. So I want to know your take on this. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, this is maybe a little, is this paranoia, what I'm about to say? If I had to walk through mud, my first thought is there's a nail in there. There's a piece of glass in the mud. That would be I'm not thinking about the hose or anything. I'm thinking about the nail that's hidden in the mud. So if I had to walk through it, I would probably also wear the Crocs. You're right. It is grosser, I guess, but there's a nail in the mud. This is somewhat related. I have a friend who is a costume designer, and she sews a lot in her house. And I, more than one time, have found a needle in her carpet or a little pin in the carpet. Maybe, in the years that I've gone over there, I would say I have found a pin in the carpet 4 or 5 times because she sews and she makes costumes. And also, she's one of those people who want you to take your shoes off in her house because it's cleaner. I agree. It's cleaner to leave your shoes at the door, but not when you have needles in your carpet. So guess what, guys? I don't take my shoes off. It's like I can either, if you want me to come over and have a little cocktail, I don't want to think about the needles in your carpet. All right.
Hey, Kevin.
Hi.
This is Matt from Houston, Texas. Really enjoying your podcast as of lately. Kind of got into you about a year ago or so on TikTok, and then binged all of your material on there. And been listening to the podcast and heard you mention that you had others, specifically the American Queer. And so I went down that rabbit hole and found my favorite to be episode 3, as well. That's where I'm at as of late right now. Not to jump into the 4th episode of that, but anywho, what really grabbed my attention was the song that you had at the end of that episode, and was just curious about it. But do you have a name for the song? Is there somewhere that you have that available to, you know, stream or do you sell it anywhere? Just curious about that. I really enjoyed it.
This has come up several times, how people are rediscovering or discovering for the first time an old podcast I made called American Queer. If my story about growing up in church and discovering your sexuality and being in conflict, if that's an interesting story to you, I tell it in great detail on a podcast I made several years ago called American Queer. And it brings me great joy that people are discovering that. It's not a funny show. It's a very thoughtful, kind of heartfelt story. It's very much like a storytelling podcast, but each episode ends with some music that I made. A lot of you might not know. The dream of my youth was to be in a band and have a record deal and that stuff. And that's sort of the first dream I chased. Never really panned out, but I made several recordings. All of the music, if you're interested, I don't know what the song was at the end of that episode, but all of that music is on Spotify. The group is called Indiana Queen. And there's maybe 5 albums. If you like kind of folky, weird little folky alternative country stuff, then maybe you'll like it. And if you've listened to American Queer, that's the music that's at the end of every episode. So look up American Queer on Spotify. It's all there for you to listen to forever.
You are listening to the Call Kevin podcast.
Shamala Hamala, Kevin.
Shamala Hamala to
It's
you.
Ingrid from Miami. I've been wanting to leave you a message for a little while because every time I hear the other messages you play, I almost always want to contribute something. A thought, feedback, or just sort of, lifting them up in agreement. I think something that I've been thinking about lately has been how we connect, especially how we make friendships as adults. If I may offer a suggestion, there's a little hobby that I've been doing for almost 17 years now. It's called postcrossing. And essentially you sign up for this website, postcrossing.com, I think, and you get a random address from someone in the world, right? Somebody who signed up. You send them a postcard. When they register it, after receiving it, then your name is the next to go up to somebody else, right? And I think it's nice. It's a nice way to connect with just people around the world. And it's very low stakes because you can set the option to whether you want to continue corresponding or you can just leave it as one and done. And it's been a lot of fun. And you get really cool postcards. Anyways, shamala hamala to my fellow Kevin congregants. And hopefully I'll leave a message soon. Bye.
Oh, I like that idea. I had been brainstorming something like that to do with you guys. I'll check that out. I like that idea of sending a postcard to a stranger and then getting one in return. I am on this new kick where I want to live an analog life. And what do I mean by that? You hear me talk a little bit about how I think social media is making us sad. It's the powers that be are using it to manipulate us and divide us and hate each other. It's become, as amazing it is, and how, it connects us in a wild way that our brains are not used to. It's only been like 15 years. But there's just there's a lot to it that I'm like, what would my life be like if I wasn't attached to this screen all the time? And I've been thinking about it a lot. And things like sharing postcards and stuff, I like that. It's the reason I'm doing the Secret Sunday Message. It's the reason I'm doing this show. Like, how can we use the technology in a way that is meaningful as it can be, and do away with the more harmful parts that's isolating us and making us, I think, lonely. I went, like I told you at the beginning, I went to the Museum of Modern Art today, And I made this choice. I was like, oh, I'm going to record a little bit because I can edit this into a fun little video. And right now, it's probably funny for me to say I want to unplug from everything when I am a social media personality. I realize more than one thing can be true at once. But I was recording and making, I'm going to make a little video of my trip to MoMA today. And I chose to do it. And I was sort of laughing at myself. But I was like, I'm at this lovely museum looking at incredible pieces of art. What would it be like if I didn't have my freaking phone in my hand? Probably would have been a more enriching experience. Had I not been also thinking about content and just enjoyed the museum. What do you guys like? Am I just an addict? I might be. Everyone's probably different. I have friends who aren't that attached to their phone at all. Do you have friends who don't really text you back in any sort of timely manner? And, or people who will leave their phone on the counter and then not look at it again till the end of the day. I think I want to be more like that. I love ideas like that postcard thing. If you guys have an idea of how we could do some kind of postcard trading thing, I would definitely spearhead that. I love the sound of that.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
I was just curious as to what was the last thing that you came across on the internet that just
Pornhub.
really, really tickled you? Maybe even made you cry laughing? Or is there any really weird niche of a certain type of meme or something that when it pops up, it just gets you every time? For me, I found that really goofy Michael Jackson type memes will get me when he pops up. For example, I live in the Midwest, and I also agree with the caller from Bloomington, Illinois. Would love to see you there. But it was storming so bad over the weekend, and the wind was just loud and howling, and somebody on social media just shared a gif of the Michael Jackson Earth Song video where he's standing out holding on to barren trees with each arm while there's dramatic wind blowing, and he's stomping and lip syncing, and they're this was what the weather was like last night, and it just made me laugh. As somebody who tends to be a big time overthinker, I made a playlist. I don't know how old it is. The very first video on it was uploaded 14 years ago, but it's a playlist on YouTube called Stop Analyzing and Smile Already. And I did a double check in a private browsing window and noticed that if you go into YouTube and just type in Stop Analyzing and Smile Already, that the playlist will show up because it is public. And it's just stuff that makes me smile, sometimes stuff that makes me laugh, just very lighthearted things, which helps if I'm just spiraling a bit in my anxiety or just need a bit of a breather. And most of it's just really goofy stuff. But I hope that you're having a great day, and I hope that other listeners have things that they can share that maybe make them laugh aside from your content, which of course makes us all laugh.
Yeah, so there's two things that came to mind. My little internet niches. One is if I just want to be silly and laugh at something, I love watching all of the content from RuPaul's Drag Race contestants. There's so many podcasts and little YouTube channels. Some of it is really funny. I love Trixie and Katya. They've had 3 or 4 different iterations of a little comedy show that they do. It's very, it's almost like the new era of public access TV. A lot of super low budget shows. But Trixie and Katya, all of the RuPaul Drag Race contestants, they make some really funny, entertaining, just silly kind of stuff you can scroll and watch. I do like a lot of that stuff. The other one I'm going to tell you about, you guys, this is not for everyone, but I know it's going to be for some of you. It's so good. I love it. I have to be in the right mood for it. It's not a funny thing. There are people who have Instagram channels and YouTube channels. Is that the right word? They go into abandoned malls or like malls that are barely open. And there's a ton of those around America. And they do a little walking tour of abandoned or dying malls. And I love it. It's such a vibe. It's nostalgic. I love malls. I'll say it loud and proud. I am a mall lover. If I'm in a place and I want to walk or just kind of stroll around and it's too hot outside or something, I love finding a mall. I will straight up mall walk. I love just strolling around and people watching. I love the nostalgic vibe and the feeling of like a food court, or especially if it's like an older mall. I love it. But there are people who I'm trying to think, there's one, I think it's called Unicorn Productions, maybe. If you YouTube Unicorn Mall Tour or something like that, I bet you'll find that's one of my favorite channels. And they pair it with like they almost make it sound like nostalgic 80s music is playing over the intercom, and they just walk through the mall and kind of tell you some facts and details about when the mall was built, the stores that were there and the stores that have closed, and like why it's not financially working out anymore. I love it. Now, I will say, I told you at the beginning of the show that I do enjoy a marijuana gummy most evenings. So that probably pairs nicely with the mall video. But maybe you can watch it totally clear-headed. I don't know. If that sounds appealing to you guys, go look up some dying mall tours on YouTube.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again.
Oh, I thought I had. I need to make one of those that is longer because I thought I had a little more time to scroll through and see what we have left here. How about this one?
Hi, Kevin. My name is Amy. I apologize. I'm a little under the weather, so my voice is even more irritating. First,
oh God,
full accolades for your
Amy,
content.
You're not
and
irritating.
Appreciate it so much. Case in point. My 10-year-old son, I let him watch where appropriate as much as possible, but my 10-year-old son watched some of the Javo Doodles versions of your content and stories. And I just think they're great to just talk that's good to be and fine to be curious about things. Funny side note is 2 weeks afterwards, I heard him singing Cinnamon Rain on a naked lady in the shower. So anyway, to my question, which brings it back to the beginning, you talk a lot about mental health, right? And being part of larger community. And what do you do for physical health? Right now, I have a vicious head cold. And as much as I tried to not get sick and be around other people, I got sick. So curious, with you being on the road all the time, what do you do to take care of your physical health? Thank you.
Well, Amy, I don't know that I do. If I'm being honest, I've always been kind of a couch potato. No, that's not totally true. I realize now that I have a lot of trauma around gym class. And it's taken me a long time to put this together. I have an aversion to gyms. I have an aversion to people, especially men. Women don't bother me, but men who go to the gym all the time, I am immediately skeptical. It's because my gym class in my youth was so traumatic. It was awful. I've talked about this a little bit in different videos, but my gym teachers when I was like in 5th grade, he was a fucking asshole. Just a rotten man. That's my memory of him anyway. If you weren't athletic, he was cruel. He would mock you. it was this like, it was the whole gym class thing of the 80s, that making everyone take their clothes off and get in the shower. Why? What the fuck? And then just like this like rotten redneck man yelling at you and making you feel like you're not worth anything because you couldn't hit the ball a certain way. It definitely put me off on the wrong foot about athleticism and health and working out and those things. It did. It totally did. I'm 51 years old and you can hear me getting riled up about it. And, thank God when the school play saved me. Because when I realized, because it really seemed like all the way through like 6th, 7th grade, if you couldn't play a sport, then you didn't matter. And then when the school play, I finally did my first school play in maybe like 7th grade or something, and I was great. And it was the first time like teachers were like, Kevin, you've really got something. I didn't know that. I just hearing that kind of affirmation changed my whole being, Anyway, so I like to walk. I do walk quite a bit. And if I need to, get some kind of exercise, I know it's not like super hardcore aerobic or anything, but I walk quite a bit. If there's a park, I love to take a hike. And I do like yoga quite a bit. There's something about, even though yoga is often like a group class thing, it's totally missing that like gross man thing. It's like a different kind of atmosphere. So I do like yoga. I've actually been thinking about trying to get back into it. Because when the pandemic happened, my yoga studio closed. I was going pretty regularly, but the pandemic threw me off, I think a lot of people lost their health habits during the pandemic. So anyway, to answer your question, I'm not the healthiest person in the world. I do try to not eat garbage, and I try to take walks. I should get back into yoga. That's it. Let's see. What do we have time for here? How about this one?
Hi, Kevin. My name is Dominique, and I'm really excited to be leaving you a message for your podcast. It really is the podcast of my dreams, by the way. I'm calling to tell you about a time that I felt hopeless. It was when I was between the ages of 20 to 22 or so. I graduated from college when I was 20, and I was really aimless. I had a good job. I was working at the university where I graduated from, but I was just smoking pot all day, every day. Really didn't have any goals. I had thought when I was younger that I wanted to be a lawyer, and by this time I'd changed my mind for some reason. And so I was just existing. And I lived with a roommate, and our house was this kind of bleak den of depravity. That makes it sound like worse than it was. But, it's just like kids hanging out all the time who had no ambition in life other than to get high. And it was sad. I felt really stuck in it, and like I didn't know what to do with myself, or that I even wanted to do anything with myself. I don't know that I felt like I deserved anything better than that. And one day I just snapped out of it, I guess. I had been sad about the situation, unhappy for quite a while, but I just one day looked around me and realized that I didn't have to live there anymore. And I called my sister, who I was really close to, and she lived nearby. And I told her, I need to get out of here. And she let me move in with her, which was really amazing. And I lived with her for a year. And I kept my same job. And I bought her car from her when she got a new car, because like the car that I used to have got repossessed, because like that's where I was in my life. And I got it together, and I saved up some money, and that allowed me to move out to Seattle. I applied for a job in Seattle, and I got it, and I moved. And I'm a lawyer now. This was 20 years ago. And I I've been in Seattle ever since, and I've got a good life. I have an awesome kid and an awesome husband and an awesome law firm. And I sometimes don't know how I got from there to here, but I'm really grateful that the light at the end of the tunnel did materialize. And, being a parent of a young kid and being a lawyer is a very stressful job. All of that is hard, and sometimes I still feel overwhelmed, but they're all much shorter tunnels now, and I know that I'll get through them. So thanks for being you, and hope to talk to you again on your podcast soon. Bye, Kevin.
When you revealed that you became a lawyer, I was surprised, because normally when I hear that story, that's also my story. Those are my people you're talking about. But normally when we get ourselves together, it's not like, and then I became a lawyer. I lived in a house of pot smokers and just smoked pot, and then I became a lawyer. That's not what I was expecting. Because normally it's like, I decided to get myself together, and now I'm the general manager of an Applebee's. Like, that's what I would have become, is the general manager of an Applebee's. Instead, I lucked out and I got to be a comedian. So, yay for that. But, being general manager of an Applebee's would be fine too if you need to get yourself together. Do you remember that era in your life where you lived in a house and people just came over all the time? It's a pretty common thing, I think, when you're 21, like in your first apartment or your first house, and then just people just show up and sit on your couch for no reason. Do you remember that? You stop doing that at some point, and then you become a lawyer. That's how it works. Well, you guys, this was kind of an experiment to record an episode in my hotel room. The sun has set. I'm looking out over, I can see, well, it's not the World Trade Center anymore, is it? What's that? What is it now? It's where the World Trade Center was. I'm looking right at it. I have a long history in this place.
It was the 90s.
Sorry, I forgot I was recording a podcast.
It was the 90s.
Thanks for hanging out with me, everyone. Hope you have a great week.
It was the 90s.
Shamala hamala.
It was the 90s. It was the 90s.